Okay gentlemen, the 5HP24 tailpiece. You see that I got my tailpiece nice and spray painted. To protect the inner bore from spray paint and rust from moisture, I just put hydraulic oil on it. I don't spray paint the inside, absolutely unnecessary. What we're going to do is we're going to slot that new seal in. We're going to get the shaft and the bearing in, and then we're going to put that locking nut and the clip back in. Here we have our shaft. As you can see, I spray painted with direct to metal paint so that it's protected against rust. I brushed it, then spray painted it. Here you have the seal surface perfectly smooth. Here you have the bearing surface. Here is the bearing that we're going to reuse. The bearing is absolutely super smooth, so I'm going to position the inner races so that, let me show you, the grooves match up so it feeds properly. I think the best way is going to be getting that bearing in first, then putting the seal in, and then we're going to drop the shaft through. This is a bit different from the 5HP19. We're going to put in the bearing first like this. I'm going to put this under my press and put it in gently, but if you don't have a press, I guess like a piece of steel right over here and a hammer will also get the bearing in, but you should take out this race at least, so you cannot touch the race because you need to hammer on the outside. But I'm going to do the press because I really want this to happen controlled and gently. Right, so I've got that bearing pressed in. You basically put this side of the bearing in already. You position the outer race, and then you use a suitable piece to push it in. And then you can put the other race in and do the final push on that inner race. It's not actually by the book, but it's the only way, since you cannot enter your bearing balls and inner race from this side, because the balls won't go through this seal diameter. So now we're going to take that other race and we're going to put that away. And this will stay in because it's running on the bearing. We want to put it flush on the table. I want to lubricate my oil seal bore with oil. Then I want to lubricate the oil seal itself, especially the inside, because that's where I'm going to push my shaft through. And these oil seals do not like to run without lubrication, because that means that they're going to have friction and they will burn up. So it is normal that oil always reaches these normal oil seals. Also, we have like this little guide sleeve on top here, or let's say guide bore. So the seal doesn't need, you don't want the seal to be flush, you want the seal to be like 1.5, 2 millimeters maybe deeper than flush, because you are sure that it sits on the bore where it seals. And with my fingers I can almost already push it flush. That's okay. That will do, and that suitable race allows me to push the seal in a bit deeper. I need a little bit in this area. I'm flush in that area and I want to sink in. That's it. Now to make it equal a bit. There we go. My spring is still in position. Let me try. I will try and show you guys. If you look on the inside here, you will see the spring still in position. I can now actually put the snap ring in to keep my bearing in position. So I'm going to get my snap ring pliers out. There we go. Bearing is now secured. You could have done this before. When you get the outer race in with one side of the bearing, you could already put the snap ring on. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to get that nut on. You don't need any lubrication or grease, because that nut is going to be secured and lubricated with ATF anyway. Okay, see, I just need to go a few millimeters further to reach my mark. See if I can do this with normal pliers. Okay, so before I continue, I want to feel the bearing, because I am about at my mark. But it shouldn't be any heavier. And also, to test the lubrication, we're just going to throw ATF right here in the middle until it's full. And if we see the level of ATF decrease, we know the ATF is actually getting into the bearing through the openings, and that means we did a good job. And since I'm not going to need ATF anymore, I just want to fill it completely. See what happens. It has the level because it's got this big reservoir where the ATF can flow. There we go. I see the bearing being soaked in ADF. So that means that my bearing lubrication is okay. And that's a lot better now. This feels like a bearing. And let's hammer you in. And you see now that I got like right on the mark. It's like a tenth of my mark now. With the gearbox on its bell housing, you take your park wheel like you see here, and you install your park wheel with the big gear going in. There you go. We now put a straight edge right here on the machined face, and we want to measure the distance between the machined inside of the parking gear, and I want to measure to 13 centimeters on my straight edge, just to make sure that I take the same point with my second measurement. That's 49.98. Let's do that measurement again. That's 49.94. So let's say 49.95. Back at my gearbox housing. Now ZF wants the shaft to stick in as much as possible, because they assume that the drive shaft will push this shaft inside as much as it can. So if we had any bearing play, we'd have to take out the bearing play. And to do so, I put an old bearing race here, and we're going to make it rest on the bearing race, so that whatever play I have, gravity is now making sure that the shaft is in the most it can. Remember that we were measuring at the 13 centimeter mark of my straight edge. So now ZF wants you to measure the distance between this machine face and the machine face of the shaft. So not the nut, not the edge of the nut, but the machine face of the shaft. So we put the straight edge in a way that we can measure at number 13, and that's how we do it. See, my caliper is at 0. Gonna shove my caliper, and we're gonna measure to 13 now. And we measure 47.15. Let's do that again. 47.20. So let's stay with the 47.20. That gives us 2.75 distance. I do not have to measure the thickness of my straight edge because I used the 13 on both measurements. So whatever the thickness is here, as long as I used that exact measurement point for both measurements, I don't have to correct them. So we said that we had 2.75. They want at most 0.45 millimeters axial play. So we take 2.75 minus 0.45. That means we need like 2.3 shim, and we would be perfect. And the shim that I have here is about 2.32, so we can make that 2.3. So now that we verified that our shim is the right one, 2.3, so we approach that 45 mark, we can now install the tailpiece on the housing. And mind you, there's an O-ring right here. You need to fit a new O-ring. I'm not going to do this because I still want to take the gearbox apart for whatever reason. And this side points down, and that's down, so that's how we're going to fit this. And it'll fit right over because I don't have the O-ring. So this is a very easy fit. There we go. Nice new seal. And you can see that you can see now my shaft is painted like this, so against the rust. And when it's installed, somebody needs to put oil here also for the seal, because you don't want it to run dry. So with the tail fit, I'm just going to put some bolts in it hand tight. This is basically the drive line done. You see that my end play is correct. You took this measurement, we took that measurement, we subtracted. We see what ZF wants. They want at most 0.45 play, and we had just the right ring to be on that 0.45 mark. I also have a thicker ring, so I could go under it, but we're okay. The original ring was still okay. Okay, this is a pretty good view. Now that I'm this far, I can also just remove the old gasket. Alright, did the entire mating surface here, nice and smooth. Had to extract the bolt, was able to get it out. Let me see. This guy's in, we checked that before. That guy's in, we checked that. These guys are in, we checked that. There's some funny housing damage here. No idea how that got there. We didn't do anything on the rebuild. Before I get started on the fitting the valve body, which is a pretty straightforward job. Let me remove the masking tape that I used here. We're going to replace that little seal that sits over here. It's that selector shaft seal. They tend to leak as these transmissions get older. They are not difficult to replace, no issue at all. To get that old one out, you just need some sharp screwdrivers to ruin it. There we go. Now I need to take a lamp. Oh, that's clean. Let me just get a rag through and we're okay with it. And to get this tiny little seal in, we're just going to take an old socket and we're just going to hammer it in. Okay, and that seal sits. Definitely. Alright. So this is actually a difficult position for me, but it's very easy to see for you guys, or very clear to see for you guys. We first want to put the connector past the selector arm, and we want to put that connector primed in front of its, in front of the bore in the housing. And you want to try and push your connector in already. There you go, and I've got 2 new O-rings, so it's got quite some suction there. Let's put the valve body right there for a second. Now we want to make sure that our piston here connects on the notch of the selector. So that's going to happen. And then we have a guide pin. The guide pin of the valve body sits here and needs to go right there. There we go, guide pin's in. And now I just want to use, let's see, that bolt on the top right. Actually never put it in like this, but so far it's alright. It's pretty heavy on my hands, but guess if you want to make a good YouTube movie, you gotta suffer. See, that's our valve body. And we've got that bolt in. So my plug sits, yes, I've got that clip in the groove. Let me see, don't forget the magnets in your pan. And let's see how that pan is gonna fit. That's gonna fit nice. So, there she sits, 5HP24. I'm finished with the series on the 5HP24. Let's summarize. I think this box has already been rebuilt. My F clutch had 2 wave plates where I only need 1 wave plate. End clearance wasn't okay. End clearance on the other clutches was barely, and especially the A drum was very tight, so I put the other steels on it. End clearances are now all okay, except AA is a bit too tight, like a few hundredths of a millimeter. My pump was okay. I still got to do those piston rings, and I got to do that O-ring, and I got to do that filter and gasket the moment this transmission is being used, but it's now ready to be stored. All surfaces that are prone to rust are have some hydraulic oil on it, and I'm just gonna put this box away, store it, and find a car for it. Hope you enjoyed the entire movie series. Took me quite some time, and my next movie series is going to be that 5HP30 that I have sitting around. So I'll be back in, let's say a few months with a 5HP30 write-up and maybe some alternators in between. Thanks for watching the movie series. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments. I always try to reply. So far it's been going well, and see you in my next movie series.